Hey everybody, welcome to Startup Chuck. Today we are going to be talking about trade shows, the basics of them, how to set up a booth, things to think about. It seems really daunting, but after you do your first one or two trade shows, it's not going to be nearly as hard as you think it is. So with that in mind, first we want to thank our sponsor, which is Chuck Rack. And Chuck Rack is a pretty awesome rack that goes onto the back of your car. It's hitch mount, easy to load skis, bikes, swap between skis and bikes pretty easily. And you don't have to keep the main post on the back of your car all the time. You can, take it off if you want pretty easily, which is great. So in terms of trade shows, a big thing is first, let's say you identify the trade show you want to go to. Since I was doing it with Chuck Rack, it was pretty easy for me to use the Outdoor Retailer show. So that is going to be our example show that I will go over because we just recently came off of the Outdoor Retailer Winter show. But for example, let's say you decide you want to go to the snow show. You would want to say, I want to exhibit. And then basically you would go through all of the registration stuff that you need to do for that. But what does that mean? Well, typically shows like this are about $25 a square foot, which means that for any given booth, you are going to end up spending about $3,000 for a 10 by 10 booth area. That might seem like a lot. It might not seem like a lot, depends on your budget. But let's assume that you're a bootstrapped startup and that's a lot of money then. So what can you do? Well, there's a couple of things that you can do. First, get a list of a previous floor plan. So for example, we can check out the winter retailer floor plan. So this is showing the convention center. And then you can go and look closer and zoom in. And here are all of the booths. It's actually extremely a small show this year, which is a little disappointing. But you can say, okay, what's the smallest booth here? Oh, this is 5 by 10 foot. Okay. What else is small? Here's another one. All right. Face glove. So if you look at that, then you have some sort of idea that when you talk to the sales guy, you can say, hey, I don't want to do a 10 by 10 booth. Do you have anything that's smaller that, might work better for us since we're really, bootstrap startup, but we want to be at the show? If you look at this, there's not a lot of people that were at the show this year. They would probably want anyone to come. They sold us an 8 by 10 spot across from a major retailer, Ordervox, or I guess major design company. And, we paid 80 square feet on $25 a square foot. You can do things such as join whatever the organization is. Typically, there's like some sort of other organization alongside it that might be able to get you a discounted rate. So for example, if you join for the OR show, Outdoor Retailer Snow Show, the Snow Industry of America group, then you might spend $500 to $1,000 joining them, but maybe they can get you square footage pricing that's lower, and then it ends up working out. It all depends on, that trade-off between how much it costs to join their group versus then how much discount you get on the booth space and how much booth space you want. If you are traveling to the show, something to think about is how many people are going. They're going to need hotels, you're going to need food, pay for travel there. And then also, if you have a really big booth, are you going to have to crate it and then have them receive it? There's all sorts of things that start getting really, confusing. So I'll get into it, but basically at a trade show, everything costs money. Uh, if you want power at your booth, it costs money. If you want to hand out drinks at your booth, you have to use their specific vendor and all of this is not cheap. So things to keep in mind. Now, if you want to have something to drink or eat something at your own booth during the day, that's not a big deal. You can just have your own food sitting there when you get hungry and then eat it. But if you want to hand out beer at happy hour, let's say, you need to have then the specific vendor paid, and they will come and have a waitress or a waiter or whatever your bartender hand out the drinks. And you might pay by the drink, you might pay by the case, you might say, well, I only want to have 50 available, and then hand out up to 50. It really depends on what you work out with them. So let's see what else we got on here. So a big thing is, once you have figured out the size of the booth that you're going to have, pre-set it up. So you want to have basically on the ground, wherever you're going to do it, in your garage or something, a 5x10 or 8x10 or 10x10 taped out section on the ground. And then you want to start figuring out, what is my booth going to look like? Now, most booths, and this is really interesting, I'll show you this. Um, most most retailers, like Emerald, who did the outdoor retailer winner, they have a very large, comprehensive, possibly hundred of page exhibitor service manual. And in there, it outlines everything that you could need. Dates and times of move-in, where it's located, all of the different exhibitors. So, for example, the Union Freeman place that does the move-in for you. So, if you want to do a hand carry load, which is, for example, literally anything that you can hand carry, you can go and park your car at a dock. So, for example, we went and parked our car at a dock like this, and then, you know, basically brought stuff up onto the dock area, hand carried it in, and it all came out of a car in a big pile like that. And when we were done, it all moved into a pile like that. And so really, to hand carry your load here like James is doing, not a big deal. But they are very, very stringent on making sure you hand carry it. So there, you cannot bring your own hand cart. If you are bringing in skis, they're on your shoulder. They're not going to want you to have your own dolly or anything like that. That's what they're for. And so they will charge you basically for a cartload if they feel like you are trying to get around the system, which isn't that expensive. I think it was like $65 for a cartload. It was like a 3 by 4 foot cart, and you could put as much stuff on you want it, and then they push it. And they'll push it across the trade show, and the trade show floor might look like something like this when you're trying to get into it. Basically, a big open area that you have to walk all the way across to, and there's all sorts of people moving crates and forklifts and all, things like that. So things that you might need to look out for so you don't get hit. Let's see here. So catering, photography, you're not allowed to have your uh, own photographers running around and making media. Mainly this is though for the press. They want anybody who's in the press or bloggers, etc. They want them to have to go through this service and or pay to get a photography badge that costs more, things like that for media. And then if you want, you could pay for security and air and water and gas if you've got some fancy equipment. And then the big thing is insurance. So you need to have liability insurance, and you'll see this later on in this document. And it depends on the venue you're at. This one required a $1 million, $2 million comprehensive policy, and they had a thing all set up to where you could get it for about $80. It was very inexpensive. If you have a rental truck or something dropping off stuff, you're supposed to have insurance on that truck. You're supposed to have insurance on your employees. So you want to make sure that your employees are covered in case they get injured or anything like that. And then, uh, they have mannequin rentals here, but this also covers things like if you want to have a cart for clothing, so like clothing hook cart, then they'll do that for you. Clothing rack, or a table or chairs that you don't want to haul with you, carpet, all that stuff. They do it all. So they'll have basically a list of things you need to do and before what deadlines. The pricing for the square footage goes up based on how close to the show you are. Internet costs money. You can just tether from your phone. Typically, you have internet access inside. Power. Chances are, if you don't need a ton of power, you might be able to just bring a portable power supply to run whatever you need to. So you can save money by being self-sufficient as much as possible. And then if you have hanging signs, this is interesting because it's if they're hanging from the ceiling, not if they're just like hanging from, like your stuff that's mounted to the floor. They want to know if like are you hanging massive banners from the ceiling, things like that. Overhead obstructions, are you having very large displays where people could walk under them, or a forklift or something could accidentally hit it when, going around and setting stuff up. And then what they call booth activation is basically anything that makes your booth exciting and louder than other booths that might be a problem. They want to know that. So here again was the general liability. And actually, they say it was 65. I think I paid more than that, but they wanted 1 million, 2 million, automotive liability, workman's comp, all that. They tell you what the colors of the show are going to be and what your booth is going to look like. Here's an example of a standard booth. And if they give you a half booth, chances are it's divided either um, front to back or side to side. Front to back if there's somebody else in it, or side to side if nobody's in it. And then they have, height restrictions and wiggle room, all sorts of things you can go through here. Everything's spelled out. I'm not going to go through all of it. But big thing is freight deliveries. So let's say you have a huge booth. It needs to get screwed together. It needs to go and get shipped there in a crate. They say where to ship it. They say when to have it arrive, because they want it to arrive no sooner than a week ahead of time, but no later maybe than 1 or 2 days before the show, so that they can then get it, deliver it to your booth. You can go set it up, and then you have to mark it basically as empty, and then they will then move it into a temporary area to wait until the show's over, in which case then it comes back, and then you will dump everything back into the crates and then, ship them off. And they probably have their own shippers they like using to send stuff out. So you got to get all of that organized. But again, if you have questions, just call up these people and they'll help you figure it all out. Let's see here. Move in and out procedures. Here's the self-unloading hand carry policy for privately owned vehicles. So, for example, I couldn't rent a um, U-Haul truck, for example, and then come and then try and just do a hand carry load. They want it literally from your car, which is actually nice. It's supposed to help small businesses. And then you have to have a second person with you because they need you in your car at all times in case you need to get out of the way of a bigger truck. And so, again, you're going to need at least 2 people doing this. If you don't have a second person, well, find somebody. And let's see here. Storage, freight, early teardown. So a lot of shows want to fine you threaten to fine you if you leave the show early, tear down your booth before the show is supposed to be done. Well, a lot of times after 3, 4 days, however long the show is, A lot of vendors realize that the people that wanted to see their booth are not going to be there in the last 3 hours of the last day. And so they just start tearing down early, and then everybody starts tearing down early. And then basically they don't like how it disrupts it. But to be fair, it really depends on the show. If the show is hopping and it really makes sense to keep your booth up the whole time, great. If it doesn't, well, it's only a $500 fine for first time violations with at least Emerald, who is running this show. And chances are they're not fining anybody. It takes, or you might also not even go back, depending on how good or bad the show was. So that's something to think about. And then let's see what else here. Safety, they got a whole bunch of safety stuff. Cleaning, you can pay people to vacuum and take trash away if you want. And then again, they want you to use their contractors. Electrical and lighting, they handle that. Internet displays if you have animals. They do want your display to not be a problem in terms of just like how chaotic it is. So they have some guidelines. And then hospitality, food and beverage sampling, happy hour, noise advertising, and what else? More registration info. How to get badges, is in here. Um, so then at the end, which is kind of nice, they have like press materials and daily guides that you can apply to get your product into like the daily newspaper they have for the show, and then more people might read through that and then come to your booth. Most people just throw them out, but some people actually look at them, and it's nice to see your product in there. Sometimes they cost money, sometimes they're free, but if you can get any free advertising, it's great. So that's what the exhibitor service manual says, but there's a lot of other little things that are nice to know about. So now we're going to get into those. So I talked about setting up your booth ahead of time, but another thing is have flooring. Flooring is cheap and it will save your feet. You want to have some type of soft flooring. They make all types of snap together soft foam flooring. At the end of this video, I will show basically a time lapse of us setting up our flooring. And if you don't have it, it makes your booth, like if you just have bare concrete, your booth's not going to look as good. I know that when I go to very large trade shows and I've been walking all day, I've got 25,000 steps in, I seek out booths that have soft flooring because it is relaxing on my feet at that point. So think about having some sort of soft flooring. It's really nice. You can find it in all sorts of shades and colors and looks. You can get fake wood. It's either way, it's really nice. Soft carpeting is even nicer, but you have to typically pay for that from the vendors there unless you want to bring in your own stuff, but that's a huge pain. And so some type of soft flooring is great. Chairs. Bring some sort of chair to sit in. There are times where you want to break and you can sit in the back of your booth and whoever else you're with can run your booth. And it's just nice to be able to sit. Same thing with bring water. There are times where you just can't leave your booth and you're thirsty. So bring, a gallon, however much water you need to drink during the day, some snacks, really helpful to have your own stuff. I like having a table with a tablecloth where I can hide all this stuff underneath. So if I want to have more chairs or food or drinks or my backpack and jacket, whatever, it can all go underneath the table. Super handy. Locks. You're going to want to lock up your stuff if you leave it there overnight. It depends. You can take it with you too. Depends on how small or easy it is to deal with. I mean, the show itself is locked up, but if you have some amazing piece of proprietary technology, you might want to take it with you or lock it in something that's not easy to take with you. And then let's see here, candy or giveaways. So candy's really good at your booth because everybody wants candy. or mints or something, and they see it on your booth and they come over and you kind of like an attempt to, give them your spiel. And so it just brings people over. And you don't have to, a lot of people you can tell aren't interested in your product, but at the very least, it brings more people to your booth and your booth seems like it's more active, which is great. Plus, if you want a snack, you can eat some during the day, keep your energy levels up. Let's see here. Banners. So I talked about presetting your booth up ahead of time. So you want to order your banners and your business cards early. And when I mean early, not like 2, 3 weeks ahead of time, because you'll have plenty of time to get it in. Prepare that they're going to make a mistake on your banner or business card at least once, and you're going to have them make it again in order to get it right. Because this has happened to me multiple times, and it'll be either the trim is off on the business card, or somebody missed proofreading, or the vinyl company made a mistake and didn't, it's like art on the banner just vanished. No idea how, but it just wasn't on there. And so then you need to either like stick with what you got, which is not ideal, or you have time to have them remake it before the show. So really you want to get your banner and any artwork or any business cards early so that you have time to get them remade if you have to. In terms of raffles, and again, this depends on your state, and I'm not giving any legal advice here at all, but you might want to check into what you're allowed to give away in your state, and also the rules for the based on the exhibitor service manual for whatever show you're going to. But by having a raffle and collecting people's business cards or emails or whatever, you can then get a bunch of potential customer info that you can then reach out to and try and sell to them later. And that's super great to have a bunch of emails of people who are interested in your product. They at least wanted to win one, means they might want to buy one later on. So raffles are really good for that as well. On your business cards, or at your booth itself, it's really good to have a show special. That way people want to take your business card with them, with your info. And then if they are interested in your product, then they can get it at a discount, which is great. They're less likely to throw away your business card if it has some theoretical value to it. And then let's see here. Badges. So I don't know. It depends on the show. I'd say all of the different shows that I've been to, usually they'll give you 6 badges. And I don't know whether or not other conventions do more or less, but from what I've seen, 6 is fairly typical. And if you need more, you can buy more. But usually they give you at least those 6. And then they can be categorized in different methods. So, for example, you can have your badge be like for the CEO, the CFO, for your engineers, and it'll say engineer across the front of it, or designer, or whatever. And you'll see that different badges at the show will have different colors based on what the person is doing. I thought it was funny that the red badges at the Outdoor Retailer show were for non-buyers, because the show is only supposed to be for people, it's mainly supposed to be for companies to show their products to people who would potentially put them into retail stores and buy a lot of them. And so they're kind of highlighting the red one saying, oh, it's a non-buyer, don't even bother with this person, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then the last, I guess, 2 things before we show the video of us building up our booth is really, there's usually a happy hour if it's a big enough show at the end of the first day or two, usually not on the last day, sometimes, but usually there's a happy hour. So if you want to get a drink and network with people, it's usually a great opportunity. They don't usually start until the last hour or two of the show for good reason. And then it's always super nice to tip the bartenders. So make sure you have cash, or sometimes they take Venmo, things like that. because you're going to see them multiple days, most likely. And so these are good opportunities for you to network with either, retailers or other people at the show. Personally, I like really interacting with other people at the show because they are entrepreneurs like yourself. And chances are they have had good or bad success in dealing with, for example, certain venture capital firms or any other problem that you might have had along the way. Like, oh, I was trying to get into retail and I talked to such and such company and they were not a great retailer to work for or to sell to because of these reasons. But this other retailer was great. They gave me much better terms. They wanted to pay more for my product, etc. And these are all things that uh, other people, again, have learned through hard experiences that you can benefit from their mistakes and their time that they've already spent getting to the point that they're at. And so networking is a great way to save yourself time and energy. So that's another thing that I would definitely think about doing when you're at the show. Have somebody hang out at your booth, and then you go walk around and talk to other people. Bring your product with you if you want, and just show it to them. They're going to see that you're an exhibitor because it'll say exhibitor on your badge. And so they'll realize that they don't need to try and sell you what they've got. They might want to, though. At the very least, you guys can strike up a conversation, and then usually people are totally willing to help you out in terms of giving their knowledge away because we all know how hard it is to do what we're doing. And if we can prevent somebody from making the same mistakes we did, we're glad to share that knowledge, unless you're an exact direct competitor. But even still, most of the time people put the fact that they're a direct competitor to the side and they just chat like they're regular people. So that is all I've got on conventions. Hope that was valuable. If you liked what I talked about, please like and subscribe. And I hope you enjoy the little setup video I've got going on right after this.